Well, today, what one judge has called the lawlessness of Donald Trump and his staff was made vivid once again in two hugely important stories that are really about us, about all of us, every one of us. And it might not seem that way at first. One is the story of an immigrant who was shipped off to a prison in El Salvador, something that could never happen to us citizens, right? And the other story is about an exclusive private institution far removed from your life, it seems, that has nothing to do with you, or at least it seems that way. But today, we are all Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, because Donald Trump said today very clearly that he wants to be able to throw anyone in a prison in El Salvador and throw away the key, even if that person has committed no crime. And that means us. That means all of us, because Donald Trump and his lawyers are insisting through the courts that even after they make a mistake, as they admit they did in the case of Mr. Abrego Garcia, they don't have to fix that mistake, and they can leave him in that prison forever. And if the mistake they make the next time with you or me is that they sent us to an El Salvador prison, even though we didn't commit a crime and even though we are United States citizens, that mistake cannot be fixed, according to Donald Trump and his lawyers. No American court can order that an American citizen illegally deported to a prison in El Salvador by Donald Trump can ever be saved from that mistake. That's the position of the President of the United States and his lawyers, and there has never been a darker statement made by a President of the United States or his lawyers about what it means to live in America than that statement. Donald Trump is the only president who believes he can snatch anyone off the streets in the United States, send that person to El Salvador, find out later that that person never committed a crime and is a citizen of the United States, or any other mistake Donald Trump made in the seizure of that person, and Donald Trump can leave that person in prison in El Salvador for the rest of time. That is the constitutional dementia of Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his lawyers brought the same constitutional dementia to an attack on our oldest American. Using his own library of hundreds of books as the very first contribution to Harvard University, a Puritan minister named John Harvard created America's first university in 1636, 153 years before the government of the United States of America was created. Harvard graduates played a major role in the creation of the United States of America, including the second president of the United States, John Adams. More presidents of the United States went to Harvard than any other school, and not one of those previous presidents of the United States, whether they went to Harvard or not, ever attempted to seize control over Harvard University, as Donald Trump attempted to do before he got crushed by the oldest institution in America today. The oldest American in that sense, Harvard University. Donald Trump and his lawyers threatened Harvard, as they have already to other universities, that they would be cut off from any federal contributions to the important research, including life-saving research done at Harvard and other universities, unless Harvard simply, in effect, made Donald Trump the president of Harvard. Donald Trump demanded control over the admissions policy at Harvard University. Donald Trump demanded in writing control over all hiring at Harvard University, from professors to the maintenance staff, to cooks in the cafeteria, to the football coach. Every single job at Harvard University was to come under control of the President of the United States. And the President of the United States alone would decide who should or should not be hired at Harvard University, who should or should not be admitted to Harvard College. Imagine Donald Trump sitting there in the Oval Office deciding who should be admitted to a university, who should be admitted to Harvard Medical School or Harvard Law School or Harvard Divinity School or the Business School or the Dental School or all the other graduate schools. Donald Trump wanted to control all of that. His lawyers sent a letter to Harvard on Friday demanding all of that control and demanding absurdly and stupidly vague things like, quote, reducing the power held by students. They did not put in writing what that means. They also demanded, quote, reducing the power held by faculty. And again, a phrase that has no meaning. And Donald Trump and his lawyers demanded in writing the right for them to get rid of professors who Donald Trump has decided are, quote, more committed to activism than scholarship. Harvard biologist George Wald, who won the Nobel Prize, was certainly as committed to activism as he was to scholarship during the Vietnam War. George Wald appeared at countless anti-war demonstrations around the country protesting the Vietnam War. George Wald was a hero to the Harvard students who took over a Harvard building in protest for the first time in the history of that university in 1969 to protest the war that Donald Trump was afraid to fight and afraid to protest. Donald Trump was a rich draft age kid who now at age 78 was just declared in perfect health by a military physician who gave him a physical last week. Donald Trump found a way for his health to be imperfect enough with alleged bone spurs that no longer show up in his physicals to keep him out of Vietnam. And so Donald Trump didn't support the war in Vietnam. He didn't oppose the war in Vietnam. He did the most spoiled thing you could possibly do at the time. He just took his bone spurs to a golf course to work on his golf swing while brave young men his age were dying in Vietnam and other brave young men his age were trying to prevent more deaths in Vietnam by the kind that Donald Trump wants to end. Donald Trump wants to end in this country. The kind of protest that he wants to end in this country actually began in Boston, the Boston Tea Party. That's the kind of protest Donald Trump would now call terrorism. I know most people might not realize what Harvard University has done for all of us, including people who will not only never see Harvard University, but will never even visit the United States and might never have anyone in their family go to college anywhere in the world. Harvard University has helped us all on this planet in more ways than we know and saved the lives of loved ones in more ways than we know. The smallpox vaccine, you can thank Harvard for that. Benjamin Waterhouse came up with the smallpox vaccine in 1799. Anesthesia, a lot of us have benefited from that. A lot of us did not have to go through surgery wide awake, like in the old days, feeling every cut, every slice, thanks to the dean of Harvard Medical School, John Warren, who used anesthesia for the very first time at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, which is a teaching hospital affiliated with Harvard University that Donald Trump is now threatening to defund because Harvard will not let Donald Trump become the president of Harvard. And so, yes, Donald Trump is threatening your health care tonight in more ways than you can count, including at teaching hospitals like Mass General. The EKG that Donald Trump had during his physical last week that apparently indicates his heart is fine. He can thank Harvard for that EKG. Dr. Paul Dudley White of Harvard Medical School introduced the electrocardiogram in 1914, and literally millions upon millions upon millions of lives have been saved around the world by that intervention. We are all related to someone whose life was saved by something doctors saw in an EKG that allowed cardiologists to take action to save that life. Polio was not just a crippling disease, it was a fatal disease. The first polio patient ever saved from dying was in 1929, thanks to Harvard Medical School. In 1938, Harvard performed the first corrective heart surgery for children. And Harvard has not been asking the parents of children with heart conditions to thank Harvard for decades for the way doctors around the world have learned to save those children with heart problems, thanks to the breakthrough in corrective heart surgery for children at Harvard in 1938. The The first artificial kidney, we can thank Harvard for that in 1947. The first kidney transplant, 1952 at a Harvard Medical School hospital. And Donald Trump should be very, very grateful for Harvard inventing his favorite pill in 1954, the oral contraceptive for women that millions of women around the world have been able to use to control their own choices in life. Harvard pioneered telemedicine in 1968, non-invasive fetal heart monitoring in 1973. And the first MRI was in Boston at Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard's teaching hospital, in 1979. And for those of you who haven't yet needed an MRI or an EKG, Harvard invented laser tattoo removal. And so the list of Harvard's research accomplishments just in medicine that benefit all of us around the world is endless. And Harvard research has contributed to every area of science. The world-renowned chemist James B. Conant was president of Harvard during World War II when the United States embarked on a secret research program called the Manhattan Project. It was called the Manhattan Project because it began at Columbia University, a university Donald Trump is also trying to take over. Harvard President James Conant's secret choice of the person to run the Manhattan Project was Robert Oppenheimer, who moved the Manhattan Project to New Mexico and brought the world into the nuclear age, with Harvard professors contributing breakthroughs, along with professors from Columbia and institutions that Donald Trump despises now and wants to simply seize and take over. Today, Harvard's lawyers responded to Donald Trump's lawyers by refusing the Trump demands, saying that they were, quote, in contravention of the First Amendment, invade university freedoms long recognized by the Supreme Court. The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Neither Harvard nor any other private university can allow itself to be taken over by the federal government. And that is the way you stand up to tyrants. And that is what Harvard did for all of us today. Stood up to the tyrants. The pretext for the Trump attempted takeover of Harvard and other universities is that Donald Trump believes there is nothing more important for a university to do than to oppose anti-Semitism, which every one of these universities already does and did long before Donald Trump ever pretended to do that. Although Harvard University is 150 years older than the United States of America, Harvard had fewer presidents than the United States of America. So numerically, the Harvard presidency is a more exclusive club than the American presidency, and the current president of Harvard is the latest in a series of Jewish presidents that Harvard has had in a country that has never had a Jewish president of the United States. Today, Harvard's president, Alan Garber, who happens to be Jewish, sent a mass email to the Harvard community, which includes everyone currently affiliated with Harvard and everyone who has graduated from Harvard. And he said, no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. We proceed now, as always, with the conviction that the fearless and unfettered pursuit of truth liberates humanity, and with faith in the enduring promise that America's colleges and universities hold for our country and the world. President Garber cited Harvard's ancient motto, Veritas, which is Latin for truth, and then said, seeking truth is a journey without end. No one working for Donald Trump can understand a word of what Harvard's president said today. In the Trump lawyers' threatening letter to Harvard demanding changes at Harvard, they kept repeating the phrase, reforms must be durable. That was their word, durable. Harvard has a lot to teach Donald Trump and his lawyers about what durable means. 389 years. How's that for durable? Harvard is much more durable than Donald Trump and his lawyers, and Harvard will be there long after them. The great circular idiocy of the Trump threatening letter to Harvard says that they insist, quote, the university must immediately shutter all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And in the same letter. They demand diversity, and that is their word. They demand, quote, hiring a critical mass of new faculty within that department or field who will provide viewpoint diversity. And so, in that Trump sentence, diversity is a good word. And diversity is exactly why Donald Trump is trying to take over Harvard University. That's what his letter says. And in another line of the same letter, they use the word diversity as a slur, as they usually do. That's how broken the brain of Donald Trump is. He doesn't know what diversity means. His lawyers do not know what diversity means, and they prove that by demanding diversity from Harvard University while forbidding Harvard University to pursue diversity. That is as stupid as you can get and have a law degree and dare to write a threatening letter like this to Harvard University. The same willful stupidity and lawlessness is at work from Donald Trump, forcing us all to live with the mistake that he made by sending Gilmar Abrego Garcia to prison in El Salvador. He actually sat in the Oval Office today with the president of El Salvador, who presents himself as an international gangster of some sort, eager to do business gangster style in the Oval Office, with the president who now says he wants to send American citizens to his gangster friend's prison in El Salvador. No one in the room complained about the visiting gangster president not wearing a necktie in the Oval Office, the way a complaint was voiced in that room about the heroic wartime president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, not wearing a necktie in that room. Here is Donald Trump saying he wants to send American citizens to a prison in El Salvador, a place where he has sent at least one person by mistake. And yes, Donald Trump says he wants to send people who've committed crimes, but he has already said that's who he wants to send to prison, and he sent one person to prison, and it was a complete mistake. So as you listen to this, think about what it means to live in a country where a mistake could be anyone. It could be anyone who did not commit a crime, not commit any crimes anywhere ever. Someone just grabbed by masked federal agents of Donald Trump, as we have seen them do to other people on the street, thinking that couldn't happen to us. Grab that person, spirit that person off to an airport, fly that person to a prison in El Salvador, and then and only then find out, or claim that only then they found out, that that person is an American citizen who has never been charged with a crime, never committed a crime, and is there by mistake. And Donald Trump has already insisted that it is impossible to get anyone back from that prison in El Salvador. That anyone could be you. Listen to what Donald Trump said today and understand he could be talking about anyone you know, anyone in your family, anyone.
I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that.